Welcome back to the Second Short Podcast, where the entire playbook is open. I'm Josiah.
I'm Christian.
Hayden.
I'm Eli.
We don't want to skip over the fact that the Spotify link is in the description for anybody who wants to listen to the audio-only version.
Yeah, so obviously we took a week off last week. Some people prioritize their family and their girlfriend over this podcast.
Or high school football.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
Okay. We are happy to be back. Today we're just going to kind of review. I don't know if you guys remember episode 2. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. We went over our reward predictions, offensive player of the year, rookie of the years, coach of the year, etc. And we also had our Super Bowl predictions. Some of those did not age great. Me and Christian, we chose the Jets in the Super Bowl. Rodgers tears his Achilles on play 3. Because of that, we're going to regroup ourselves and kind of go back over and glance from our initial predictions. And we're also going to go over what we think is actually going to happen now that we're halfway through the regular season. I think we got to start off with the biggest award, MVP. I had Mahomes. Who did you guys have?
I had Hurts.
I had Josh Allen.
I had Jalen Hurts.
And I feel like Mahomes and Hurts right now are the top two. Mm-hmm. Lamar kind of sneaking in. After that, I don't really think there's anyone else. I think Tua lost his way out of the MVP conversation, at least for now.
Mm-hmm. I don't even think Mahomes deserves it. I think Hurts is contending for the award.
Mahomes is number one. Come on.
Mahomes is the current favorite.
But I think Hurts has played better this year than Mahomes.
Yeah. Here's my argument for Hurts and why I'm going to stick with Hurts, getting ahead of myself. But it's so difficult to win it 2 years in a row. Like, name the last player who won it 2 years in a row outside of Aaron Rodgers, which I know it just happened. But, like, outside of that, like, it's so hard to
Do you know who the last person was? Because I
don't. I have no idea. I mean, maybe.
When did he won it 2 years in a row, though?
So, like, I think the reason...
I'll look it up, yeah.
I think the reason that it is so hard isn't necessarily because so much of a drop-off from 2 years. I think it's voter bias after an MVP. Like, I think we see this in college with the Heisman. It's like, it's so hard to win it 2 years in a row. And a lot of times it is because, like, players do drop off. Like, obviously, Caleb Williams isn't having as great of a year this year. But a lot of times it's just straight up, like, the voters, they just look at their year previous and they're like, oh, they're not having as great of a year as last year, so let's vote for somebody else. I think the main reason that it's so hard to win MVP twice in a row is more voter bias than actual ability to play.
The real person who should win it is the Chiefs defense. So, I mean,
yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, I would lean Hurts, just like their run game, the way he complements their run game with the pass game, and the way he complements his own pass game with his run game is something special. And he's going to have so many rushing touchdowns just off the tush push alone, which helps.
Yeah. All right, so I did find it. The last person to go back-to-back was Peyton Manning, 08-09. Before that, wait for this one, 3 times in a row, Brett Favre, 95, 96, 97. But 97 was a co-MVP with Barry Sanders.
Was he the only one that's won 3 in a row?
That's what I'm saying. Joe Montana won it twice in a row.
Jim Brown did in like the 60s.
89 and 90, Joe Montana. Jim Brown won it 57, 58. And then again in 65, but never 3 times in a row. At least dating back to 1957.
No. So. And I agree with Eli. I think voter bias, they want to keep it at least somewhat fresh, but also I feel like there's a silver lining. It's hard to break into that mold if you're not already established. We see it in the all-pro voting. We see it in even the Pro Bowl voting. Tua last year wasn't a Pro Bowler. Tyler Huntley got in over him as an alternate. It's hard to break that mold and get yourself into those award conversations, but once you do, they want to keep it fresh. It's not fun to have Patrick Mahomes win it every single year, especially when he's going to be in the Super Bowl conversation every year.
Yeah. Who would you guys lean towards right now? I'm guessing you guys would stick with Hurts.
I would stick with Hurts. I know we're going to mention like the odds and things like that, and from a betting perspective, but like Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes are the only ones that aren't plus 500 or more. And so, like, I think those two are clearly the front runner right now. And
I feel like I just have more faith in the Eagles offense more than the Chiefs offense.
Well, and it's sad, but it is the truth that it's like such a team award in a sense of like your record does matter.
It's going to be the number one seed of either the AFC or the NFC, whoever the quarterback is.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Hurts has played like such a monopolylogue like in the Eagles offense. Like he's been able to be like that running back and the quarterback as well. Like a lot of people joked and said he was a running back, kind of like you hear with Justin Fields here or there, but like he's shown his ability to be able to throw the ball too, and his receivers obviously help him a lot.
All right, here's a question. You have Jalen Hurts on that Eagles offense. I would argue that the offense revenances through AJ Brown.
Yeah.
I would take AJ Brown
he's on
over, but we always talk about non-quarterbacks winning MVP.
That's the thing, it's
Tyreek
like-
kind of is out of there now. AJ Brown, I would rather AJ win it than Hurts.
I mean, it's not the most valuable player
Yeah,
like that wins.
because honestly, Jozy's a big advocate. Defensive players, TJ Watt and Myles Garrett right now are carrying their teams to the playoffs because quarterbacks, non-starters there.
Yeah.
The offense altogether for both teams not really doing anything. Myles Garrett and TJ, we're going to obviously talk about the defensive player of the year conversation. I feel like they both have strong arguments for the MVP.
And it's interesting you mentioned AJ Brown because AJ Brown's actually top 3 for offensive player of the year. I know I'm getting ahead of ourselves there, but like he's top 3 right now for that.
Yeah, he's been dominant.
All right, so we got a couple Hurts. We got a Mahomes. Eli, which one are you leaning
So
towards
my
right now?
original pick was Josh Allen. Like, I don't know. I know he's tied in first in interceptions. I know he's had a lot of turnovers. I know Hayden doesn't like the Bills. If I had to go away from Josh Allen, you'll see throughout the show I'm going to be really stubborn with my picks. So I almost just want to stay Josh Allen just because that's who I would choose.
You're convicted. in that.
Yeah, but if I had to choose somebody else, and honestly, I think the smart pick is Hurts right now.
Anything else we want to talk about MVP? I feel like here's one last name to kind of. Dan Orlovsky tweeted it out, and I love him, but he has some crazy takes sometimes. He said that CJ Stroud should be at least in the conversation. And they don't like giving these player of the year and MVP awards to rookies because I would argue Ezekiel Elliott in 2016 was the MVP. He didn't even get offensive rookie of the year. So I'm not sure if I'm as completely bought in as Dan is, but Stroud,
I mean,
we can just go to offensive rookie of the year award next. He's the clear front runner.
I think real quick with that, just that thought is I feel like they do that every year with some rookie, like Micah Parsons, defensive player of the year, Nick Bosa, and there were arguments for those guys to be defensive player of the year that year, but it's like I feel like they always try to like throw a rookie that's doing really well into that conversation, and it's never.
They never
happen.
win it though.
It's never going to
But I don't mind Stroud actually being in the conversation.
Going back to the voters'
he gets
bias.
it.
Yeah.
But the only thing I would say that's been rough with Stroud is some games is completion percentage. But
Well, they're
other than
still
that,
below-
he's still playing great.
They're still below 500 too. We were just talking
Are
about.
they? I thought they just got up to 500.
But still, we're talking. It's going to probably go to the quarterback of the number 1 seed in either conference. Texans aren't going to be that. If they make the playoffs, that's outrageous. Like
that's what
overplaying their
that's what the
abilities.
MVP needs to be is like obviously it's a quarterback award and it's a team award or like it has to go to a player on a good team. But I think it should be if you look at a team or a player on a team and say, now if we replace him with the average player at that position, what's their record? What's their team like? Like if you replace Stroud with an average to below average quarterback on the Texans, they're probably like 2-6 right now. If you replace Hurts with an average quarterback, I think they're 6-2, 5-3.
look at their number 2 quarterback, Mariota.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're
Mariota,
5-3
if he
at
stays
worst,
healthy,
right? Like, I'm not saying Hurts doesn't deserve it. I'm just saying if it's most valuable player, you should compare them to a replacement player and the average replacement player, and then what's their team going to be like?
Yeah, I think Philly without Hurts, they suck.
But I
they're gonna be 5-3.
agree with
AJ
your
Brown's like
argument.
the best receiver in the NFL, maybe outside of
Devontae
Tyreek.
Smith, the defense is outrageous.
Their O line is nuts. Like they're 5-3 right now.
I agree with you that it should be most valuable player, but also I feel like there's a side note that I feel like could kind of solve some of those problems, and it would be stealing the way college does awards. They had first off, they have like best quarterback, best running back. So for quarterbacks, who is it?
What do you mean? Oh,
The best
O'Brien.
Maxwell O'Brien, like those awards.
Maxwell, I think, is offense maybe.
You have the Blitnikoff for wide receivers. Shout out Erie. Tight end for Mackey. You have the Luke
Remington.
Rosa for kicker. I feel like we need to steal 2 things from that. First off, let's start naming these awards after people. Peyton Manning should be the best quarterback award. Best running back, Jim Brown, Walter Payton.
He just did that in the NBA, I think, with a bunch of
There's
their
no reason
awards.
not to.
Yeah.
Like, it's a way to honor the previous.
They didn't go Tom Brady there. So.
Well, I mean, Brady could be the O'Brien or something for the NFL's version. But that way, we're still for offensive linemen. It gives them some. I don't know. It's just recognition other than a Pro Bowl and All Pro, which we all kind of recognize has its flaws. So,
The Pat McAfee punter award would be sweet.
Yeah. Here's my last thought with the Jalen Hurts and how valuable he is to the Eagles. We've talked about the tush push on this episode or in this podcast quite a few times. Is like that is a play specific to Jalen Hurts and him as a quarterback, with him being able to squat 600 pounds. Like we've seen other teams try it and not see the same success that they have. So like that play, they use it 3 times a game at the minimum. It's like even that just alone, picking up 4th and 1, 4th and goal, whatever it might be, it's like, is that enough to say like, hey, if Marcus Mariota, their backup, was in there for that, they're not picking that up. So it changes their entire game plan, having this play that is practically 100%.
I don't want to take too much away from one or the other. Who do you think's more important to that play though? Jason Kelce and Landon Dickerson or Jalen Hurts?
Honestly,
can it be all three?
You think?
Hurts outlifts all of them.
I think if you have
I think Hurts is
an above average center in the NFL, you're able to do that with Hurts.
I don't know.
But Hurts also has those big, powerful legs that helps him out so much too.
Yeah,
I think Hurts.
All right.
All 3. That's my answer. All 3 of them. If they didn't have all 3, they wouldn't have the same success rate that they do. They would still convert more with Jalen Hurts than they would without.
I mean, they literally called it so they could get an easier punt last week.
Really?
Yeah. They were like on the goal.
Oh, like just to get their own. Yeah. I mean, teams do that with quarterback sneaks, but yeah.
So we mentioned A.J. Brown there for the receivers. He's one of the front runners for Offensive Player of the Year. I had Saquon. I'm backing completely off of that, even as he starts to kind of turn the corner, the only bright spot on the Giants roster right now. What are you guys thinking?
I had CMC originally. I think it's impossible to go away from Tyreek right now, though.
I had Joe Burrow. I mean, Joe Burrow's like starting to do better now because he obviously had that injury early on, but I would say Tyreek or CMC is probably going to get it.
I think I'm sticking with my CMC just because I think that his touchdown record right now, if that continues even 3 or 4 more weeks, it's going to be so difficult to argue against that. Yeah. He's at like 17 games.
That sounds right.
Sounds right. With a touchdown in a row, that's insane. That's an entire season. I mean, that's hard to argue that that's not maybe the most valuable player on an entire offense.
I still think just with how pass happy, I feel like A.J. Brown and Tyreek are going to run away with it. And I feel like the only way it's not one of them is one, injury, of course, and then also if somehow a non-QB sneaks into the MVP conversation.
I hope so, because who's the last receiver that got that award?
Offensive Player of the Year?
Yeah.
Jefferson, I think, last year.
You did get it last year?
Yeah, I think.
And Jamar Chase, maybe he got
Cooper
rookie.
Kupp the year before. Right?
Jamar got rookie.
Yeah.
So I think the past 2 years at least.
And Michael Thomas 2 years prior.
Yeah.
And then Derrick Henry was in the middle of that.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm still going with one of the receivers. Is there any other names that you guys would throw out there?
Tight ends have been horrible this year. So no.
Yeah, I mean, Kelce, I feel like.
Kelce's the only receiver, but yeah.
And I think Kelce has a decent argument for it, but
yeah, and I think it's those 3, and like we mentioned earlier, like the betting odds, it's like those are the only guys that, I mean, the next closest guy, they've got Tyreek, CMC, AJ Brown, and then Jamar Chase and CD Lamb are like plus 2,000 and plus 3,500. Like it's not even close. Like those 3 are the runaway top 3 right now.
Zach Moss is still second in rushing yards.
Yeah, the rushing yards have cooled off though in the past couple of weeks. Like, I don't think
CMC's injury, I think, hampered that a little bit too.
Yeah, Niners just had the bye week, obviously.
3-game losing streak. You can't
Jonathan
run the
Taylor
ball.
comes back, starts to take away from Zach Moss a little bit. But sorry, I just saw Luke on his knees on the ground, and that just threw me off there. I didn't know if that was some new Audible segment or something. But do you guys want to go to defensive player?
Let's do it.
I had we split, right? 2 and 2, Parsons and Watt. Me and Christian were Parsons, and then you and Eli were Watt.
Yeah.
I mean, I will change mine. I think it probably will end up being Garrett, but honestly, I can see it being between Parsons, Garrett, and TJ. The name I really want to say is because I thought he was good until this year. I really seen him like do a ton for the team. He's carrying their team, Max Crosby. Like I thought he was good. He just never had the stats to me. Whenever he did, like I thought he was good, but I always thought he was a little overrated from all the love he was getting for it. But this year, I'm seeing a lot from him where I'm like, he is really good.
And it's hard for him because he's on a terrible defense.
Yeah, and
you don't typically this award goes to a member of a top 10 defense.
So I low-key want it to be Max Crosby this year, and I'm like a huge fan of him this year, but I think it's going to be between TJ or Garrett this
I
year.
mean, from a gambling standpoint, if you're looking for some type of value, then Crosby's obviously the guy. But like, there's a reason for that he has so much value, and that's because those other three guys are so dominant, and one of them's going to take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sticking with my pick of TJ. I talked about him after like I think 4 or 5 weeks. He was on pace for, I don't know, 37 sacks or something like that. Obviously, I said that wasn't going to happen, but was it unrealistic to think that he's going to get 24? And obviously, like, he's cooled down quite a bit. Myles Garrett, Max Crosby are all tied at 9.5. The only person with double-digit sacks is like somebody that nobody's talking about. Danielle Hunter has had a great season.
Underrated.
So
He's
underrated.
had a great career.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen the guy. He's chiseled out of stone. My guy has like a 0.5% body fat, and he is winning against these guys who are just massive, like mass moves mass, and he is all lean muscle, and he's just moving these guys. And like Danielle Hunter's been unstoppable this season, basically. But I'm sticking with TJ. Do I think that he can break the sack record this year? No, but he could probably have 20. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see what happens. But
we saw Khalil Mack earlier this year with a 6-sack game. So sacks are so weird because you could get double digits just off of 2 games alone and then do not. We saw it with Chandler Jones. I think he finished with 10 sacks just a couple of years ago with Arizona. 6 of those came week 1 against Tennessee.
Yeah, that's like you mentioned Khalil Mack. He has 9 on the season, 6 in one game. Myles Garrett had 3.5 in one game, so he only has 6 on the season. Outside of that, like, one big game can kind of catapult you up into that conversation.
I'm glad you mentioned the Chargers pass rush.
It's been decent.
Yeah, they have maybe the best 3-man edge group. I'm not even going to try because I'm going to butcher the rookie's name out of UST. Yeah, exactly. So he's getting ahead of ourselves, but he's somebody who should start to get in that defensive rookie of the year conversation.
Like they have him for a long time, especially if he becomes great. He's 20 years old.
And I think that's they're in cap trouble after this season. I think that's gonna open the door for them to move on from Mac, go younger. Then you still have a great pass rushing duo in him and Bosa.
Well, you mentioned defensive rookie of the year there when you're talking about Tui, so why don't we transition to that one?
Well, Eli, are you sticking with?
Yeah, I'll stick with TJ.
I still think Parsons. I don't know. It's going to be one of those.
The reason why I'm not saying Parsons is because he's been quiet the past few weeks.
Yeah, but
he's been impactful if you watch the game, but it doesn't show up on the stat sheet.
He's been quiet since the 49ers.
Parsons isn't a better edge rusher than Watt or Garrett, but he's a better football player.
I won't argue that.
He does more, which is why, and people are going to love that. Same thing with TJ and Garrett. Garrett's a better pass rusher, but TJ's a better edge defender.
Middle linebacker. Did you see that jump in the route and that interception he had? That was
the Rams. But defensive
wild.
Rookie of the year, I had Jack Campbell, and I'm backing completely off of that.
I had Anderson or Jalen Carter. I'm fine with sticking with Jalen Carter. The only other guy I would think of is Witherspoon, but
Jalen's out on favorite right now by a good bit. He's like really a favorite. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I originally had Devin Witherspoon, and he is second on the betting odds right now, only behind Jalen Carter. I think that looking back on it was a good pick, partly for the reasons that I mentioned. Like he has a 6'4" speedster on the other side, who's probably second, I think, last year in defensive rookie of the year, only behind Sauce. He's got ball skills. When they moved him to the slot, he had that pick 6 against who was that team
Giants.
that they played in? Yeah, and like he's been great basically this whole season. He's a great tackler. He makes good jumps on the ball, plays in the slot, prefers to play outside, but he can play both. Like I think Devin Witherspoon, there's as much of a case for him to win it as anybody.
I thought he said he liked this a lot more after playing the Giants.
He did in the post-game press conference with SVP.
He's going to make more money if he can line up outside, though. But
that's the important part.
Yeah, I had Christian Gonzalez. Obviously, he went down early on. I figured most people would go with Jalen, and I think Jalen's obviously, hi, buddy. Our ladybug friend is back.
Recurring appearance. Friend of the show.
But I like Brian Branch's value right now. I think he can sneak up on Witherspoon and Carter if he has a strong second half of the season. But, I mean, Jalen's probably the guy to go with.
To be honest.
Well, there goes the PETA.
Sponsor us, PETA.
He's just a shell.
Waterboarding
was that
was this
for?
Guantanamo Bay.
I was just sitting there and there's water on the table. Didn't even do anything.
There goes the PETA sponsor.
Okay, keep talking. Oh, there you go. He's floating now.
Y'all are killers,
Who's
bro.
your pick?
I'm not.
He's what?
Oh, I said I'm rolling Carter still.
Carter.
Yeah, and
said
I
my second
think
bet was with him.
Eli said Carter's the odds-on favorite by a lot. I still think it's open. Like if
I
a
think
rookie were
defense is more
to
open.
generate a couple sacks, a couple picks, which isn't crazy to think.
Yeah, I mean, he mentioned the gap is like Jalen Carter is minus 380, which is great odds to win it. Devin Witherspoon is plus 300, and then the next closest is Brian Branch with plus 1500.
I
So
just
it's
feel
not
like-
close. It's like those two, and then the other guys are not that close.
I just feel like it's because Carter also found his rhythm these past few weeks. Like he finally got used to everything, and now he's
Well, he's on arguably the best team. He's going to have a lot of primetime appearances for everyone to see him. So he's in front of the camera. People are going to see how good he is. Some of these other players don't have that benefit.
Did you guys see the stat about he's on pace to tie Aaron Donald's rookie sack record or something like that for a D tackle? It was through 8 games or something
I think
like that.
Aaron's was like 9.
Yeah, so I mean, it was close. I think is what they
it's
said.
just so nuts how like they got Jordan Davis last year, and they're not even talking about Jordan Davis, who was supposed to be like a freak of a pick last year too.
He's still doing pretty good.
Yeah,
Like, Jalen
it's just
should be the
crazy
guy,
to think
but-
how Jalen's taking over it.
But if there's going to be a gap that shrunk for an award race, I feel like it would be a defensive tackle and a defensive back, because a defensive tackle can just like go quiet for a few games, even if they're just muddying up the waters and playing well, whereas a DB can just get 3 picks in a few games.
Yeah, a
and
good
just
game for them
bounce it up
doesn't
really
also
quick.
necessarily show up.
Right.
Yeah.
Offensive rookie, I mean, we mentioned it earlier. I think Stroud's going to run away
Stroud's
with
definitely
it.
winning it, but I had Bijan or Gibbs. I mean, Gibbs is looking like he's finally starting to get the ball. Bijan looked good early in the year, but now they're just Falcons don't know how to use their star guys. They just use one of them every week.
Arthur
So.
Smith.
I had Bijan to start the year. I didn't really trust any of the rookie quarterbacks. Obviously, I'd go with CJ right now. I mean, I think we'll talk about this more in the offseason, but I really can't wait to get into the topic of just like the draft in general and drafting quarterbacks, because I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but it's just such a crapshoot. And I really think it's so much more. I always thought it was, and still think it's more situation than the player. I think obviously you need to have talent, but you're an NFL quarterback. Like, you're going to have that talent. If anything, Stroud's kind of proven me wrong a little bit with this, but I don't know. I still think it's so much more situation, but credit to him, and he's who I would have right now, obviously.
My original pick was Zay Flowers, which I still don't think was an awful pick. If you look at the betting odds, he's not even in the top 6 on betting odds, but CJ Stroud is number 1. I think he's kind of the runaway. If you would have asked me last week prior to Sunday's game, I would have said it was more up in the air. After CJ Stroud's game on Sunday, I think most people would probably say it's going to be Stroud. I mean, 450 and 5 touchdowns.
6, I think. Or am I just adding?
I think it was 5. I think it was 5.
That's
I
ridiculous that Jordan Addison's a lot.
Well,
Wait,
Addison-
don't tell me, but I'm not looking at the odds. Who's the number 2 rookie quarterback right now?
Will Levis.
That's so
Plus
sad.
31.
Will Levis is above Addison. That's stupid. Addison should be the
Yeah,
second one.
so
of
it's
all that,
it's
I feel
CJ Stroud at minus 550, which I talked about Jalen Carter's odds being great. That's great. Puka Nakua, I figured that would be 1 or
Yeah.
2. He's a plus 750, which is a
He's
huge
still
jump.
like number 3 or 4 in yards, I think. So
Jameer Gibbs at plus 1500, Bijan Robinson at 2400, Will Levis at 3100, and Jordan Addison at 3500.
That list is stupid.
And I want to say Zay
But
was
it's true.
like plus 4,000, 6,000, maybe something like that. So
Levis balls out and wins 4 games, and
yeah, if
he has a
Tennessee
better
goes in
chance
the
than
playoff
Addison, which is sad.
conversation.
But
And then the only other name that I would throw in, just because he's become really hot the past couple of weeks, Dalton Kincaid. But also, tight end's not going to win that.
I mean, Sam Laporte has been great this season too.
But who's getting more airtime?
And then Jake Ferguson just had a couple good weeks in a
He's in
row.
the second year.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's right.
He was Dalton
Who is
Schultz
their
backup.
who's their
Shoemaker
rookie?
or whatever.
Shoemaker.
Shoemaker, whatever.
That's right.
But yeah, Stroud's going to run away with it. Quarterback bias. And honestly, it's hard to argue with it right now.
yeah.
I think the only argument against them is if they end up with a losing record and another guy on this list high up has a winning record, then I think that there's an argument. Like if Jameer Gibbs by the end of the season is on a team that only has 4 losses, something like that, and meanwhile the Texans have like they go 8-9 or 7-10. It's like is the argument.
still think
that-
I
would be
still think
Stroud.
because who would have thought that
because Texans people were saying Cardinals are gonna have 1 and 2 this year, and the Cardinals don't.
the Texans going 8-9, it would be crazy if you would have said that in August. So
yeah, that's fair.
I think they have the lowest win total coming into this year, maybe the second.
for the next one, I was wrong. I think I'll be curious to know what the odds are. Comeback player of the year. I thought that DeMar Hamlin just making the Bills roster he was going to get it. He's only been active for like 1 or 2 games, I think. Is it not a guarantee anymore? What are the odds saying?
Shouldn't be.
I thought it was still DeMar.
So he was before the season started like minus 3,000 to win it, which is like a surefire 100% bet. Right now, he is still the odds-on favorite to win it.
Such a joke.
At minus 145. He hasn't played a single snap this season, I don't believe.
Okay, I don't
Tua
agree
is
with
second.
it, but it's hard. He died.
I didn't even think of this
with the
person. Dobbs should
concussions.
win it.
Josh Dobbs is that's not a bad.
I
never
hate
even
that.
thought about him.
Yeah. So right now, odds favorites: DeMar, Tua, Lamar Jackson. Because remember, he missed the end of last season, and they've been on a tear this season, even though his statistically hasn't been great. Josh Dobbs, Breece Hall, T.J. Watt.
Crazy that TJ is not even like higher.
Yeah, but
See, I don't like it with TJ and Lamar because
Yeah,
they
me
still
neither.
played a majority of the season.
I like
Yeah.
Tua for that, actually.
Tua would
Tua
be
was
cool.
my pick.
With the concussions, I could see that happening.
Like him coming back to football was a big question. So
Stop.
I'm just looking at you.
I had Tua, but I'm gonna roll with Tua still. I think he deserves it.
yeah, I thought Hamlin would have at least some role on this Bills defense, and he hasn't. So I would want Tua even more now.
Well, I think that was kind of before the season, like everyone just had a periphery of confidence in the fact that DeMar was going to win this award. But now with him not even playing a single snap, like it just, I don't know. It just seems like it would almost be unfair to give it to him, even though the story would be great. Like it would be a
It's
great
just hard
end
to
to the
say.
story
He
of
died.
DeMar's career.
They have like a big
Exactly.
He did
That's the
that, but
thing.
this is not me trying to sound meaner, but do you think the Bills just felt like they had to keep him because that happened?
Maybe.
Because he's not their active roster. Like
It's a good PR move. Mm-hmm. But I don't know.
The NFL loves stories.
Yeah.
They love stories.
And that's why
everything that happened with
right.
J.J. Watt, with the Hurricane Harvey stuff, him winning Walter Payton Man of the Year was a guarantee. This year, with everything that happened to DeMar, like if he takes a single snap this year, he will win
He
it.
did though already.
Did he win?
Yeah,
Okay,
he was
I must have
active
missed
for
that.
a game.
But
At
did
least
he
one
take
game.
But did he take a snap on the
I'm
field?
assuming
think he was, like, on maybe
special
special
teams at
teams, yeah.
least. Yeah.
Okay. So,
But
I don't know. Coach of the year.
yeah, I had Sean McVay, which I still think he might be deserving of it, but I don't think he'll get it by any means. I think for all his faults, I think Tomlin should be in the consideration. I think if you look at the teams in the AFC, his is among the worst roster wise, and they're right now the 5 seed. So
I had Shanahan originally. I don't understand how D'Amico isn't running away with this right now. I think he should have almost the best odds of any. Like, I don't understand this award if D'Amico Ryans continues up. Like, if they go 7-10 or 8-9, I don't understand this award if he doesn't win it. Who cares if they're not the number 1 seed or in the playoffs? Like, I would lean Tomlin over like Dan Campbell. Like the Lions were like a maybe top 6 favorite, Super Bowl favorite this year.
maybe, but I mean Campbell, it's the Lions.
Campbell changed that franchise.
So I don't mind that.
He's not the GM, right?
No.
Like, I love Dan Campbell, but
No,
it's
but
like,
players want to play for him.
but the argument of like it's the Lions, I don't think should be why. Like, he has a talented team, good for them, and Dan Campbell's a great coach.
Yeah, but
but-
nobody wanted to go there until like he got there though.
So he should win it
He
because
changed the culture.
he got free
He's
agents.
the one that changed the culture for them.
No, that's cool. That's awesome. He's a
He
great
basically
coach.
changed
Credit to Dan
everything.
Campbell. But I think Coach of the Year should be doing more than what you're expected with the
I don't
talent on
disagree
your
with
team.
you. I think Ryans deserves it, but also I think there's a great argument for Campbell to get it because he did change that franchise around. And
Did he?
See, I
he
would.
changed
Dan
that.
Campbell did. Like, again,
Yes.
huge credit to Dan Campbell, and I agree that he's part
yes,
of it.
He has a good GM, but he literally changed the culture. That's all him doing that. That's not Holmes doing that. That's Holmes just giving him the players.
which is
And
a
that's
lot
him.
of it.
And
No,
that's
credit to
him.
him.
It's that.
But it's also him drafting too, and then him coaching the players.
Him
up.
drafting. It's
I
not
think
really
the two
him.
are intertwined. I think the two are intertwined.
So
I think coach of the year should be doing more with less talent.
And then
I'm
you
gonna
have the
chime in
Bills
because
win
I
the Super Bowl. don't
actually
wanna hear
chose
I had the
MCDC to
Niners
win
win the
Coach of
Super
the Year
Bowl.
this year. So I'm gonna chime in on this a little bit. I believe, and I still maintain to this day, and I think I'm even proven more right now with the Giants' lack of success. Dan Campbell should have won it last year. I understand
Yes.
Brian Dable had a great
Okay,
year.
yeah.
Their fall off this year has shown me that Dan Campbell should have won Coach of the Year last year for the big jump that they took last year. Now, will that correlate to this year? Right? Because they took the jump last year. So we want to see them maintain the success this year. And so it's like, I think that that's kind of the argument that I would have for it is like, the time that he's spent there, he has completely changed the mindset of these players. Like they want to run through a wall for him. They want to bite kneecaps. They want to do, I mean, look at what happened with Jamal Williams last year versus what he's done this year. It's like they were able to utilize players to their best ability. And I think that's because Dan Campbell's not only a player's coach, he's a former player. Like he has that grit, that buzzword that everybody loves. He has that toughness. Like he can go out there and like line up as a lineman against their best pass rusher and like maybe not win, but like they respect him.
He's like very role offense.
And I think that players don't respect a front office. They respect a coach. They buy into a coach's scheme. And I think that he has the buy-in of every single player on that roster.
When is this award voted on?
Right before Super Bowl.
Right
Well,
before the
it's
Super
voted
Bowl?
on, I think, during the playoffs, and then they announce it the day
So
before.
it's supposed
Super
to be a
Bowl.
regular season award.
Pretty
but
much, yeah.
It's
probably
like the
is.
Thursday or the Saturday before Super Bowl Sunday, I think.
So like when Belichick was on his run and they were going 12-4, 13-3 and getting the 1 seed or at least a 2 seed like every year, like if you're saying if someone changes the culture, even if they have a good team, they should win it every year, then why shouldn't like Belichick should have won it every year then if that's the argument? Like again, I agree.
think
And
it's
Dan
case by
Campbell's
case.
early on, but like, and credit to him, but I don't think he should win Coach of the Year this year unless they go like 14-3 or better.
I think it's case by case,
Maybe
but
even 12,
I actually
5, or
mentioned this
13-4.
when we went over these originally, how Bill Belichick, I don't think has a single one. Tomlin doesn't have a single one. Harbaugh, I think, has one. Like, so the best coaches, Andy Reid, I don't think has very many either.
And I would
So-
agree with that.
So
They
I
have
feel like
talented teams.
it's case by case. I think Dan Campbell, Detroit, it was a joke. They might have been worse than the Browns in terms of just being a joke of a
Win
franchise.
16.
Yeah,
Win 16.
not a playoff win since Barry. Still haven't. Them making the playoffs will be. They only made the playoffs, I think, twice during Stafford's tenure. So
Just imagine they have home field. That's
And they didn't
gonna be
win.
Crazy.
no,
They lost wild card, but for both
they lost
of
to
them, right?
Dallas, right?
lost to Dallas, I think,
They were,
and then
home
they
that
lost
week,
to
that
New
game too,
Orleans, I
pretty
think,
sure.
in like 2011.
Did Stefanski win it when the Browns made the playoffs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about that though.
The only other guy my guy was Robert Saleh, but I mean, I can see him having an argument for it because obviously Rodgers is down and that defense is nuts, and he's coaching them to still be a decent team. Like I can see them still being like a 500 team, but I don't see him getting it. But I think that he might be third. But I do think it's between Campbell and D'Amico.
If they make the playoffs, then I would feel better about it. But I think even like if he goes 8-9 or 9-8 and doesn't make the playoffs, even though that's a great coaching job, I wouldn't want him to get out. I would feel more comfortable with one of the other guys we mentioned.
So if D'Amico goes, let's say 8-9, if the Texans go 8-9 and the Lions go 12-5, who would you lean D'Amico over Campbell?
Who do I think? Or
I
who?
already said D'Amico deserves it over Dan, but I think there's a huge argument that Dan could get it too over D'Amico.
Are you asking who I think should get it, or who do I think will get it?
Both.
I think Campbell would get it. I would be fine either way. I wouldn't think either would be that
Here's what I
egregious.
say. I think D'Amico should get it, especially if they go 7-10. If they don't go over 6 wins, then he doesn't get it.
Oh,
Dan Campbell.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
yeah.
But
I mean, they have
aren't they
4 wins
500?
already.
Aren't
so
they
they
500
need
right now?
3 more wins. So I mean, I think that he will get it, but
I'm almost going off of like what their winning percentage is right now.
I
That's
think
what they're
Dan gets it. Well, I think Dan honestly should get it over him. Now I'm thinking about it, but D'Amico, it's just hard to choose because they're both good coaches. They both deserve it. It sucks how like you can't do like co-MVPs and stuff like that like they did that one year. Like there's just some awards that like they deserve it. Like those two deserve it right
The
there.
most recent co-award was Walter Payton Man of the Year when Eli and Fitzgerald.
And Bolden, I think it was a 3-person.
I think third was Greg Olson.
Oh, that's
because he was the only one there that didn't win it. Because I remember I like Greg Olson. I felt bad for him sitting there because like literally the other two guys won it, and he was just kind of sitting there like, oh well, twiddling my thumbs.
And now that award obviously isn't a football award. I think the last time it was a football award would have been like 2006 when it was McNair and Payton for co-MVPs.
Jimmy Johnson went 7-9 with the Cowboys in 1990 and won it.
Yeah,
Coach of the year.
Did they win the division that year?
No, they didn't make the playoffs.
What the heck?
That would have been the first year of the rebuild, right?
Yeah, they must have been awful before.
Yeah,
But I honestly am an advocate for award winners, and maybe that's just because my generation's used to everybody winning everything. But I mean, just a couple of years ago, I think it was Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Taylor both had crazy seasons. Both were clearly deserving of the offensive player of the year. I like how they do it though, because they don't there's no rule against it. If that's the way the votes end, then that's the way the votes end in their
Yeah. I would have loved to see one of those times that Rodgers won MVP.
Should have been
Derrick Henry went up over 2K in rushing, and he was just so dominant that year. I would have loved to see a co-MVP in that one. I know they'd never do it, but like...
So he's trying to swim out of it, you jerks.
I didn't do anything. He's the one that poured it.
But I think JJ should have won it in 2016. Yeah. But the only other award, correct me if I'm wrong, is we're actually adding it. Assistant Coach of the Year. I don't want to put you guys on the spot, but who do you guys think deserves it right now?
I think there's a lot of guys, but I'm going with Texans OC, Bobby Slowick.
Okay.
Canada.
Yeah. Hey, well, are we talking sideline Matt Canada or in the booth Matt Canada?
I'm just going to go with the Texans OC too, is because the story just came out, I think, like today or yesterday about Case Keenum in the quarterback room, like where Stroud has Case Keenum, since he's the vet, come up and say, let's do it like this instead. And then him and Mills are very close. Like, it's just, I feel like they're perfect together, and that they just complement each other perfectly too. Like, they're not scared to tell each other anything, because they're both rookies. You got to think, the OC is, and so is Stroud. They're both rookies, and they're learning together. And they're doing it very well, too. I mean, he is from Shanahan's tree, but still, they are learning together, and they're doing very well with it.
And we just talked up D'Amico Ryans a lot, but that's probably the number one knock and why we don't see very many defensive coordinators become head coaches anymore. Because if your young quarterback succeeds, then we're going to see the offensive coordinator go become a head coach somewhere else. We saw it in Buffalo. Brian Daboll leaves. There's some friction there with Sean McDermott. Ken Dorsey takes over, and it hasn't been the same. So that's going to be interesting, because in the next couple of years, Bobby Slowick is going to end up having head coaching opportunities.
He might be a head coach after this year.
Yeah, he's going to be in the conversation then. So,
because that's what happened with Ben Johnson last year. That was his first year as being OC for the Lions, and he changed their offense around. He almost got the job for Panthers.
I think my pick's going to be Steve Spagnuolo, the Chiefs defensive coordinator. He's been the missing piece in that dynasty that people just don't talk about.
You're just proving my point even more about the defense for me. That's what I'm saying.
Well, you're right. You were right about the defense. Think he was bad. I think but you forget about your point in that argument that you were worried about the Chiefs.
I still am worried about the Chiefs. Their offense is awful right now.
But they have Mahomes and Kelsey. They're fine.
Mahomes and Kelsey hasn't done crap. Dude.
Haven't.
Shut up. I don't want to hear from you. You mess up words all the time. Literally, the Dolphins game, I don't want to hear it. They were shut out like the whole second half. They are not good on the offensive side.
But they're good. They're just not great, I would argue. And they have the potential to be great with Kelsey, with Pacheco.
The potential, they haven't yet, though. They had all last year to do it, and then they have this year,
and they won
the
Super Bowl.
Yet.
They won the Super Bowl last year.
So, I'm not arguing that last year. But last year, they had the receivers for them.
So Juju Smith-Schuster makes
way better than what they have right now. Yes.
That's fair.
That is way better than what they have right now.
I don't think, and I love Juju. Does Juju really make that much of a difference?
Yes.
His hands
do. Who?
His hands do. The fact that he can actually catch the football.
I'm not worried about the Chiefs.
Juju is a reliable target. even though how stressful
Juju
he
is a
is,
tight
he's a
end.
reliable target for Mahomes.
I've said that over and over again. Juju Smith-Schuster plays like a tight end.
They still have McKinnon. They still have
McKinnon
Kelsey.
and Kelsey, that's it.
Pacheco.
But they don't
Rashee
use
Rice has
Pacheco.
played
They
pretty
don't
well.
use
Rashee
them.
Rice is developing.
But they don't use any
They've
of
run
those.
so many screens and like different things like that like if a team can catch on to it and actually figure out like certain plays, like when they're going to run a screen and stuff like that and shut it down, like they could lose to the Broncos.
Yeah.
Like
They could,
yeah.
but I still feel like saying you're concerned about a team that has Mahomes and Andy Reid is that, and the guy that I was talking about, Steve Spagnuolo, he's been a part of different Super Bowl winning teams. He was part of the Giants when they beat the Patriots. He just has that defense on another level. Christian was right about the defense being dominant this year. Nick Bolton hasn't even been in the lineup for a majority of the year, and he's a borderline top 10 off-ball linebacker. The Chiefs' defense is just on a whole nother level, and I think Steve Spagnuolo is assistant coach of the year.
Yeah. I'll chime in a little bit. So my initial pick would have been Jeff Ulbrich, who is the defensive coordinator for the Jets, with how they've shut down some of these really great quarterbacks that they've played
the
against.
Chiefs.
But the reason I didn't go with him is because I actually did a little bit of research. The coordinator of the year, so like the winners of that, have always had really, really good records. And I don't know that the Jets are going to have that good of a record. The worst record on this thing is 11-5.
Jeez.
Is the worst record of any of the coordinators that won, and it was Kyle Shanahan when they went to the Super Bowl with Atlanta Falcons. So like that, and then the very first one was Todd Bowles with the Cardinals in 2014 at 11-5. Those are the worst two records on there. It's like, I don't personally see the Jets getting to that record this year. And so for that reason, I'm going to go in a different direction, and I'm going to go with Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator for the Ravens. And the reason for that is because, they were stuck in their ways for so long with, was it Martindale, right? Wing Martindale?
Yeah.
Yeah, was their offensive coordinator.
Wait, no, he was
said
defense.
defense.
Greg Roman.
Greg Roman, thank you. Yes, Greg Roman, where they would just run, maybe occasionally pass. The way that Lamar has flourished this year in that system, again, his stats aren't great, but you can see that there's a big difference between Lamar in previous years versus Lamar in this. They're throwing the ball a little bit, they're doing it well. They're playing, I think, to Lamar's strength rather than just his running. And for that reason, and based on how good I think their record is going to be, Todd Monken is my answer. Also, I think they're going to win the AFC North, which everybody right now is 5-3 or 6-2. And so like 7-2.
Yeah,
7-2. Yeah, so I think that the Ravens are going to have the best record. They're potentially going to win the division. And Todd Monken, I think, is a big part of that in his first year as offensive coordinator. So
Jim Schwartz, Browns. The Browns offense shoots themselves in the foot every week. Deshaun doesn't look great. They're still 5-3. I think there's a lot of teams that you can make that argument for, that one side of the ball is awful, the other side's carrying it, and I think the Browns are the epitome of that.
Period. Well said, Eli.
Thank you, sir. Super Bowl?
Trivia question?
Omaha! Time for an audible. All right, gentlemen. What are the top 5 most handsome QBs? Who's got the most?
Are we doing
just college? Just NFL or college as well?
Whoa, I ain't gonna go on the little kids here, Jozy.
What? What did you say?
There's 17-year-olds playing college quarterback.
Okay, then don't name a 17-year-old. Why
What's
would your mind go there
17-year-olds
first?
playing college
There's
quarterback?
25-year-olds playing
Is Arch 18 yet?
Hey,
Oh, yeah.
there's 25-year-olds being college quarterbacks.
This is an NFL podcast.
Luke, are we doing former? Like, is Brady eligible for this or no?
gosh.
I'll include all time.
Okay, Brady Quinn.
Brady won.
Brady Quinn.
Tom Brady won. Tom Brady post plastic surgery, number 1.
Oh my gosh. Brady Quinn. We're really gonna sit here and act like Brady Quinn might not be?
You got to put Jimmy G in there.
Dan Orlovsky? Anybody that's on TV, right? Like
Yeah.
Troy Aikman. He's on TV.
Romo.
should he be on TV though is the real question. Because Troy Aikman should not be on TV.
No, he's a moron.
I mean Jalen Hurts.
Racist.
I was gonna say, what does that mean? What does that little mean? Russell Wilson. Listen,
Okay, yeah, Russell.
Russell Wilson
Yeah.
is a good looking guy. He is.
Well, Russell
put
when
Jalen
he's
Hurts over
skinny,
Jimmy
Russell
G.
gets a little chubby sometimes. Like
What's wrong with a little thickness?
Russell 2 years ago couldn't move. Russell like early on, like
Jalen's a better looking dude than Russell, I think.
think.
Yeah,
Luke's nodding his head pretty.
Yeah. So what are we saying? One is Brady or Garoppolo?
He's not going to let us go off without Brady being one.
He's the GOAT. All right.
Good point.
Well, what was that? What'd you just?
I'm trying to go back.
Best of three. So
Rock.
Christian has one.
You hit it. Rock,
paper, scissors, shoot.
Good job.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Get out of
all
here.
right.
All right. So does that mean
I don't even
Brady
put
too?
Brady
Jimmy
on
G,
that
Brady
list.
two.
Yeah.
Jimmy G, Brady two.
Brady
Three.
shouldn't be on there.
If we're going all
Terry
time,
Bradshaw.
if we're going all time, I mean, are we gonna throw Brady Quinn on there?
Brady Quinn.
I would say
Yeah.
Brady Quinn at 3.
I'll look up ugliest.
I think honorable mention should be Tom Brady. Tom Brady shouldn't be on that list.
Okay, whatever.
Anyway, let's
If
move on
Brady
to 4.
wasn't that good, he wouldn't. Like Brady Quinn is someone you like think of. You're not going to think of Brady if he wasn't.
Luke, when
Ford
we do this,
quarterback.
can you post like their pictures
Oh,
next to
yeah.
their names?
4, Jalen Hurts,
You got Mike Glennon,
Jalen
5.
Mike Glennon.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts is for sure.
and then who's number 5? So far, we have
Not bad.
Garoppolo,
That
Brady,
forehead gets me going.
Brady Quinn, Jalen Hurts, who's number 5.
Oh,
Some people like Dak, right? But I don't want to put him on there.
Jared Goff, Ryan Gosling,
Yeah, Jared Goff is
Carson Wentz, Prince Harry.
you.
Shout out signing with the Rams.
These message boards are so
I
fun.
was gonna say if we were including college or older guys, Sam Hartman right now is
I'm so
the
sick of
heartthrob.
Sam Hartman.
This person said to look up Joe
Dobbs.
Cap.
Josh Dobbs, Ryan Shazier.
He's not even.
All right, Luke, we got to get a picture of Joe Cap on
He looks
there.
like a car salesman. Oh, yeah. Oh, there he is in his old.
Joe Burrow. You could do Joe Burrow.
Joe Shiesty.
He looks like the Home Alone kid.
Yeah.
Girls do go feral over Joe Burrow. I think he should be 5.
Girls go crazy for Joe Burrow. When Joe Burrow dresses up, girls go crazy
Get
for
a
him.
cigar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say Joe
The
Burrow
fur
5.
jacket.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Burrow 5.
Joe Shiesty.
We really hit the hard hitting questions on this podcast.
That's right, exactly.
The most
The important stuff.
But
Ladybug's keeping.
I put him there.
he's chilling
He's
now.
been there for a while.
Super Bowls.
Ooh, Kyle Orton.
Super Bowl's what? Kyle.
Oh,
Orton.
Tim Tebow.
Tim Tebow is.
Yeah, when he had like that monk haircut where he just like shaved the middle.
That was a rookie hazing, wasn't
Yeah,
it? Yeah.
Richie Incognito.
Oh my
It's not a
gosh.
quarterback.
Yeah, but still. Hefty lefty.
Kirk Cousins kind of has like a hot dad
Oh my
thing going
goodness.
for him.
I've heard that about Aaron Rodgers too. Later years, Aaron
Goose.
Rodgers.
That was his nickname.
Tony Siragusa.
All right, Super
right.
Bowl.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know.
I'm
I
gonna
might
stick
roll
to
away.
boring. I'm gonna go Chiefs over Eagles.
I had Eagles winning in my original prediction, and I'm gonna stick with it. I think I had Eagles winning over the Bengals, if I remember correctly. I didn't actually have that one written down. That was the only part. But I think I had Eagles win over Bengals.
Real quick, I'm gonna change. I'm gonna stick with the Niners because I'm fans of them. So I'm gonna say Chiefs over Niners.
I'm actually gonna go Philly Ravens. I'm gonna go Philly over Ravens.
That's a good
Battle of the
pick.
Birds.
I like that one.
I had Niners over Bills. I'm just going to be stubborn and go Niners over Bills. I think they both bounce back in the second half.
Luke, Super Bowl prediction.
I think I originally said Bills Niners as well. You're gonna have to come back to me and give me 30 seconds.
Sounds good. Jozy trivia.
Let's do it. All right. So
Do I have to wait
I'm
for
not-
you
I
guys to
didn't
catch up, or am I?
Now he's escaping.
here's the thing. I wanted to involve some of the college football knowledge in this as well because I know that we have
So
some
maybe you won't
more
get it
college
right away.
football fans on this than maybe some NFL. But I want to name an NFL wide receiver, and I want you to name who his college quarterback was.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So I think that'll involve Eli a little bit more
see.
on that one. So
Depends on
All right, we
First one-
gotta do 3, 2, 1. We all say it at once. We can't just yell it out.
that's fun. Fine with me.
Whatever.
So first one, we're gonna start out easy. I think you guys will probably all get this one. Mike Evans.
All right. So are we just saying like 3, 2, 1?
Yeah, 3, 2, 1.
Johnny
Johnny.
Manziel.
Johnny Manziel. Easy one.
Only when
I
I didn't know if he was 10 or 11 and if he was a year before Johnny, but I
Well,
thought
so
he played
yeah,
his
so that's a good
last
point. I
year
did
with
want to
Johnny.
mention that, but I forgot that I want to go with their most notoriable quarterback. And so if
Johnny
a guy
and
had,
Evans were
yes,
drafted.
they were
the same year.
synonymous.
Yeah,
they were
drafted the
synonymous.
same
And
year.
either who was with them for the longest or who was their most if a guy went to the NFL as the quarterback, like that's the guy
Okay.
that I chose for this.
I didn't know if there was
Yeah.
like a
No, that was a good- that was a great
Marvin
question.
Harrison, like Stroud over him.
Yeah.
McCord.
So my next one, the guy that I was going with was DeAndre Hopkins, but I mentioned the Clemson boys is what I put in there. So this quarterback had D-Hop, Sammy Watkins, Martavis Bryant, Sammy Coates, Adam Humphries, and Mike Williams.
All right, I got it. I think.
I mean, I'm between two.
I'm between two. But I think it's.
I love Taj
thinking-
Boyd.
All right.
I was
Eli, we
thinking
were
Boyd.
supposed to.
I
go
don't think
3-2-1.
we should do 3-2-1.
Okay.
I'm doing Boyd.
I was.
I mean, it's either him or Deshaun, but I think it's Taj.
Yeah,
It's
because
Who else would it be during that? Would it be?
I feel
I mean,
like
maybe
the easy
Deshaun in
answer
his,
is
like, early
Deshaun,
year, but
so, like, there's
Deshaun
like a
had the
good way.
end of Mike Williams, I think, not the beginning. Mike Williams was
he
a
did play
rookie
Mike
in
Williams.
Taj Boyd's last year.
I love Taj.
Yeah.
Him and CJ Spiller.
Yeah. And Taj Boyd, by the way, 6th round pick, number 213 overall in 2014.
to the Jets.
Yeah. Yep.
He was like my Madden guy
Yeah, he
for a
was your
couple
man. Yeah,
years.
him and Blunt were your guys.
Yeah. Also, to throw that out there, they
Lots
also
of
had Andre
views.
Ellington at running back, who was basically a receiver. So, like, the fact that they didn't win the national title is ridiculous. Anyway, okay. This one might be a little bit more difficult. It was for me, at least because I'm not a huge college football guy. Julio Jones.
I mean, I think I just said it, didn't I? Or did I not? Maybe I didn't.
I think it was two.
It's not.
Was Julio before him?
Julio was drafted in 2011.
Yeah, then it's him, right?
McCarron was drafted in 2015
Yeah, it wasn't.
Oh,
or
really?
2014.
Wasn't McCarron.
I'll tell
Was
you,
it,
it's not McCarron. There was
McElroy?
one
Was it
year.
McElroy?
It was McElroy.
McElroy.
Yeah, I never knew that guy. That was
McElroy.
probably before I got
Greg.
So-
He's a college football analyst.
My
now.
other guy. Was
Another guy drafted by the Jets.
My guy was.
So
gonna
here's
be
the
Jake
thing.
Coker, but
McCarron was
it wasn't him.
QB2 in
He's after
2010.
McCarron.
Julio's last year. So there was an overlap, but McCarron was QB2.
Gotcha.
Yeah, right when you said it, I thought
Yeah.
McCarron over McElroy.
Yeah. McElroy was a 7th round pick, number 208 overall in 2011 by the Jets. So, and then this one is the difficult one because it's throwing it back a little bit. I'll tell you the years in a minute, but I think that might give it away if you need a hint. Dwayne Bowe.
What did he play for? I don't know who he played for.
That's one of the hints. You guys want that right away?
Yeah, I don't know who
No.
he played for.
No.
It's a Kansas State.
Am
Or am I just saying
because
that
of Kansas City?
I want to say he went to Oklahoma.
Oh, it's
Give us-
LSU. It's LSU.
yeah.
Jamarcus
It's a-
Russell.
Good answer. It was he had listen to this: Dwayne Bowe, Brandon LaFell, and Trendon Holiday.
Jeez,
Trendon Holiday was a running back though.
5'8".
Yeah,
Jamarcus is a
it was
beast.
Jamarcus Russell. He was at LSU from 03 to 06. Maybe the most infamous quarterback of all time, taken number 1 overall and just a complete bust. So there was one additional question separate from this.
Wait, hold up. Pause. We went through the most attractive quarterbacks. Cam Newton at the beginning of his career.
That's valid.
Not Cam Newton now.
His
but-
smile was like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I don't think I can picture him like from then.
We have to do like a top 10 list.
I mean, to be fair, it's like the dude's like 6'7", 280 of pure muscle. Like,
I was just thinking
just
huge
that.
quarterbacks drafted number 1. And I was
that,
like,
was funny when Jimmy Clausen tried saying
yeah. All right. So the question is this: what NFL team is the most games under 500 in their
History.
franchise history? So keep in mind, it couldn't possibly be the Texans because they've only
Most
been around
games.
since
Oh, okay.
most games under 500. And then there's a follow-up question whenever we get that one.
I want to say Jets.
well,
It's not the Jets.
it would be a newer team probably, right? Like Carolina.
No, because I
It's
think
not
it's
a
like
newer
the
team.
Texans were bad, but they weren't bad for long enough
That's
to
why
go
you can't
that
answer.
much under
Oh,
500.
Cardinals probably.
I
Because
was
I don't
thinking,
think it's Chicago. I don't think it's Chicago. I think it's Arizona.
What about like Detroit?
I was thinking between Detroit Browns and Jets, but he said not Jets. So I
was
I mean,
thinking
I know
Detroit
Arizona.
makes sense,
I know
too.
Arizona's one of the bad ones. I would say between Detroit.
They
and
just had
Arizona.
so
Detroit
many, like,
might
1
make
in
sense, but I
15,
feel like
1 in
I've heard
16,
it's Arizona
14.
before.
So Detroit, don't let the 0-16 season confuse you. It is not Detroit.
So Arizona. So
I'm going to go Arizona.
The answer is Arizona. Now the follow-up question is this: how many years would it take of Arizona Cardinals going undefeated for them to reach 500?
I have no idea.
10,
Higher,
15,
17.
lower,
12.
12. 12 seasons of going undefeated for them to even sniff going 500 as a franchise.
Or more teams over or under 500? Like obviously should be
I
exact,
think it
but
was
obviously
it was pretty close to even.
I think there'd be
I
a
saw
couple more over than under, but
Yeah, if I had
it's
my
like the
phone, I could see
Texans
it.
being a new franchise and then sucking probably helps some teams.
See if I can pull this up real quick because
Probably
it's on my phone. I know I have it on my phone.
Probably
We're
like
using that
17
right
and
now.
15 over or 18 and 14 over.
Luke, do you have that Super Bowl prediction?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Ravens Eagles.
Ravens, Eagles.
Ravens over Eagles.
I like Eagles over Ravens.
And that's what you said too, right?
Yeah, but I think it's gonna be close. But yeah, I chose Eagles over Ravens because their offense is more powerful. I think. And they only have Humphrey as a corner.
Where is it? Is it in Vegas this year?
Yeah,
Yeah, that
Vegas.
sounds right.
We'll put in the description underneath the video. We'll put all the teams that are under 500 and how many games they are
Sounds good.
for those trivia people who are curious.
Any closing notes? Guess not. Thanks
so.
for the communication.
Yeah.
All right. This has been the Second and Short podcast. We'll see you next week.